Okay, I'm ready. Go for it. Please start.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining September board meeting on 28th of September. And we would start off with the roll call, and then we would take the the vote for the previous board meetings. So I will start from the people that I see on my screen. I can see Grant. Grant, you're on mute.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, great. We Grant, then we have Bill.
Here.
Jubin.
Here.
Bill, Avi.
Here.
Glenn.
Yep.
Myself, and we have Andrew, we have Tom Pappas, we have Shelby, we have Lauren, Dawn, Harold, Vajon, Lisa Jones, Kelly, Zoe. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's board meeting. Before we start or commence the board meeting, I would like to take the vote for the previous board meeting minutes. I'm sponsoring. Who's ready to second?
Second.
Sorry, I missed who said it.
Bill
It's
did.
Avi or Bill.
Avi can have it.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Avi. Now I will start with a vote with the people that I see on my screen. Jubin,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yep.
and a yes from my side. Now, Andrew, over to you to start.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, just a quick one, the conflict of interest and antitrust statement. I hope that people do read this. As we have people who are competing on the same board, it's really important from American and EU antitrust law to be aware of those issues. So if you are somewhat conflicted with any topic, please do take your time to read this material and recuse yourself as necessary if required. If you don't know if you're required, please just bring it up at the board so people are aware and they can make a collective judgment. That's all we need to say there. Okie dokie. The staff reports. Let me just get into slides. Okay. Oh, sorry. There was one change of business that Grant wanted to push forward. Grant, would you like to discuss that business? It's about the Netherlands power of attorney.
Yeah, so it is actually added to the minutes for this evening's meeting, Andrew.
Okay,
So
great.
It will get picked up.
Fantastic. No problems. Cool. Let me just go to here and share. Okay, finalising the 2019, 2020, 2021 annual reports with Vandana.
No, I was just saying there was some background noise. Now it's just gone. There was some static.
Okay. If the static resumes, I've got alternative microphones, so I can keep on swapping through them until it stops.
Sure.
The finalised annual reports will help us with our fundraising. I am working with Teresa Huff on a grants and fundraising process to mature our approach so we can go and get these larger grants, and that is actually progressing quite nicely. We have created a marketing plan for ABSEC San Francisco, which should turn into a larger marketing plan, which then leads into, in 2023, at some point, I do wish to advertise for a communications/marketing person. I will discuss that with Glenn and Shelby as we go through presenting or creating the budget. If we can't afford it, we can't afford it. If we can afford it, I'd like to be able to. We'll see. Hopefully the year will end out with quite a nice, decent profit, and we can afford to take a risk. Having someone who's in charge of our community, in community management, and helping us with our marketing message would be a very, very great thing. As this is an EFT, I will be coming to the board for approval to hire, but it is obviously relevant to our interests if we can afford to do so. For those of you who don't know, Tom is leaving us after 9 years. It's going to be a very different place without Tom. Shelby Graham is Tom's replacement. But Tom, thank you so much for all the work that you've done for OWASP over all of the time that we've been working together, both when I was on the board and obviously for all previous boards.
Well, it's been a pleasure working with you all. I mean, the foundation is in quite a different place than it was back in 2014 when I came on, and you all needed an audit done in a month, and there were a variety of other issues, and we've worked through them all because we've all worked as a team. So, and the community is supporting you guys, as you'll see in the financials. So it's been an absolute pleasure working with you all. Shelby, you are in great hands with Shelby. You know, she comes to us from one of the largest CPA firms in the country. She has a lot of experience. She has a master's in tax. So again, you all will be in very good hands. And who knows, as I said to Vandana, you never know when our paths will cross, but it's time for me to go look for the next chapter in my life. I will be staying in not-for-profit. So like I said, you never know, but thank you for everything you guys have done. And again, it's been a pleasure.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
And welcome,
welcome.
Shelby.
Thank you.
For operations, Dawn put together the board elections are underway. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Alan
Andrew.
wants to say something.
Before you move on, could you talk a little bit more about the marketing plan for the conference? It's in very tight order, so very short time frame.
Yeah,
bit
give me a
urgent.
tick. I'm going to have to search for. Hang on a tick. Bringing it up. Okay, so effectively what we're trying to do is get the 4 Ps that are traditionally part of the marketing worked out. What is it we're trying to sell? We're far beyond selling the event sponsorship that is now completely sold. I believe yesterday, is that right, Kelly? Kelly's on mute.
Sorry, what was the question? I was on mute.
Okay, yeah, sorry. The San Francisco sponsorships are all sold now. Everything, including the coffee breaks.
Coffee breaks are completely sold out. We have one sponsorship left.
Right. Okay.
Yep. And then there's a couple event supporters, but that's just pretty much a logo on the website. But besides, for all of the other packages, yes.
Okay. So if anyone knows anyone who wants to have one more event sponsor, there is obviously one spot left, but we're not going to be budgeting any marketing money towards it. After doing a bit of research, I determined that 5% was about the right amount of revenue to put into marketing. Apple, for example, spends 6% of its revenue on advertising. Most people in the tech industry spend between 2 and 6%. 5% for us is quite the ask, and I think that's quite a reasonable amount of money to put towards trying to fill the seats, because we've got a projected number of 500. We can have a capacity of 1,200, and so we would like to have the 1,200 side of things via the use of marketing. So we are going to be doing a bunch of different things. I did share this document with the board. If you are interested in reading it in more detail, please do. If you want to have a meeting to discuss it, please come and jump on my Calendly and make a time with me. Fundamentally, we are going to be doing emails, sponsors and exhibits, asking them to share the details of the event. We'll ask the speakers and trainers to market their own sessions. We will be doing a membership benefit. So, for example, our membership benefit partners, such as Secure Flag and We45 and similar, we'll ask them to promote this conference. Jibin. Jibin?
We can't hear you, Jibin.
Cannot hear you.
Okay.
Now?
Yep.
Now, yes.
Okay, sorry. First, apologies. I'm still getting over COVID, so I'm going to have to go off mute and cough if I stop. But is there a dollar amount associated with that 5% that you know of?
Yes.
So it's $9,000. It's okay. No,
So-
it is.
For training, it's $9,000, and for the main event, it is 14. This was actually budgeted in the approved plan of $25,000 in the overall AppSec San Francisco revised budget. And so I'm keeping it as much as possible to those figures. So when we actually do the advertising with LinkedIn and Twitter, we will be making sure that we are capped at those levels to make sure that we are not overspending.
Got it.
Okay. But yes, this is based upon the projections from the original budget for the AppSec San Francisco.
I see. So got it. I misread that before. So together it's like 20 something or whatever, 2350.
Yeah, 2350 roughly. If we get up to 25, we might need to get a contractor to help us depending on how busy it gets for the events team. Just because there's so many things that need to be done, such as emails, getting the tweets done, getting the adverts built, and things like that. These are skills that we don't necessarily have in-house, so I'm reserving some of the budget for a contractor to assist us. We haven't identified that resource yet. If anyone's got anybody who is in a marketing type of position and can do a 1099 contract with us, we'd love to hear from them. Okay, Avi, any other questions that sort of jump off the page at you?
That's good. Yeah, thanks.
No worries. Okay, operations, the elections. As of the moment, despite numerous reminders, only one board member, nominee has actually nearly finalised their election materials. The process is that if they don't complete that, then they're not eligible to be run through the election. We need at least 3 of them to do so, to have, 3 of them to be sort of available for the election. 4 of them creates an election. So if you are standing for the board, please get your materials completed. And we will continue to remind them as per the plan.
We have, sorry, Andrew. Update is 1 is completed, 2 have answered everything, just need to put their link to their video. So we would have, if they finish that, which I'm sure they will, we will have 3, and then 1 more would be an election. So.
Yeah. And so fundamentally, the election is on track. The WASP awards have been posted to all the winners. So thank you, Dawn, for getting that done. One of them was considerably difficult, but it got there in the end. I do encourage the board to look at these figures. They're a more graphical representation of what Tom's about to give you. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Tom.
Sure, let's see if I can grab the screen. All right, here we go. So again, thank you all. I really appreciate, everything you all have done. I'm going to give the last one here. Shelby will take over for me next month, but I wanted her to see, usually what I talk about. So can everybody see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
So again, on a good note, and hopefully you've had a chance to read the narrative, which tells the story, but our cash balance is up $850,000. Receivables are up, but when you look at them, they're not aged. So that means that, Kelly and the team are out there, selling sponsorships, which is a good thing. The other aspects that are in here, we don't have inventory anymore. We're up a little bit in prepaids because our in-person events are starting to ramp up a little bit. So when you look at our total assets year over year, we're up almost $940,000 or 66%, which I can tell you is not the case for most of my clients. So again, you all are doing, the foundation's in a good place. The community's supporting you. So I'll stop there and take any questions with regards to assets. Okay, not hearing any. When we look at payables, again, payables are up a little bit, but there's more things going on. The ACPAC will get recognized when September gets closed. The deferred corporate membership is great. This is a number that is mostly collected, so we get to recognize it every month during the term. We've adjusted the project sponsorship. This is, as of the end of August, what's been billed for AppSec US. Again, another great note. LastCon's doing better than last year. And with that, this here, just so that everybody understands, because of what we did with the project balances and the chapter balances at the end of every year now, we are adjusting based on what the project balances are on 12/31. So as of 12/31/21, the balance was 58. At the end of 20, we were still carrying all of those larger balances, but because you guys have adjusted the process, it went down. Our retained earnings, again, are strong. What that's showing is that, we had a strong year last year because the net income went into it. And then this year, as you'll see when I get to the P&L, the board summary, we're showing $156,000 net profit. Last year at this time, it was minus 143, but our budget had us at almost a negative 150. So you guys are building a cushion. So with that, again, your equity is up 60% year over year, which is fantastic. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions regarding the balance sheet, which is OWASP's financial position at a point in time.
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
I was talking about potentially doing a new hire next year, but also we want to do more program spending. I would like to, when we do the budget, would it be possible for us to estimate out roughly how that might look in the early part of the new year? Like how soon could we potentially hire someone is a question that I think the balance sheet might be able to answer.
Well, I mean, at this point right now, Andrew, your liabilities, really, if you look at them, are $1 million, but of that, 973 is deferred revenue. So it's not things you have to pay for in the future. What a true cash liability is your accounts payable. So the fact that we have collected 1.9 million, and I can tell you from looking at it yesterday, it's up over 2 at this point. It depends on, your budget. So I walked Shelby through the budget template that we've taken a few years to create, including the staff page, Andrew, where you and I painstakingly, because of what happened last year with Inspirity's fees. So she's all set with that. So what I would suggest is the sooner the board can come up with strategic initiatives and then programmatical initiatives you all want to do from a staff perspective, you can start modeling that at this point. So
excellent.
I would say middle of the month, or again, as soon as that information makes its way to Shelby, along with, the budgets for events and things like that, she can start putting first pass together.
Yeah, we're still waiting upon some quotes for DC, and
Mhm.
if there's any interest from Singapore in running a Singapore actual event. But for the rest of the board, you heard Tom. If you've got something you want to get done, now's the time.
Yep. Okay, with that, I'll move over to the board summary. And let me make this a little bigger for you. Again, I'm not, and I'll bring up the narrative at the end. So again, we outdid revenue, and a fair amount of that was recognizing the project funds that were sitting there as deferred, but we trued it up so that it's up to date. We had budgeted no revenue for conferences. There wasn't any that I'm aware of. Again, not a bad thing. So our revenue was up 102. Expenses, as you can see, are more or less flat. You know, the G&A is legal, and the grant writer that you all have hired. You know, chapters are a little high because of the meetup expenses, but when you look at it as a whole, we were under budget in expenses by almost 18,000. So that made us 85,000 net income better than budget just for the month of August. Stop there and take any questions on August. And I apologize, I can't see you all while I'm presenting. So if somebody has a question, just speak up, please. Okay, not hearing any. Again, looking at your revenue, you know, your events and the corporate memberships are more than covering, you know, what we budgeted. This minus 66, inside of this budget was $100,000 grant that didn't happen. And inside of the project expenses was $90,000 worth of expense that we budgeted. Neither of those happened. So if you take those out, donations and grants, which is where the project funds came in, is actually over budget for revenue, and projects technology would be under budget. So, you know, really what's lagging is the merchandise and the trademarks, but we know that it's been like that for quite some time. But again, through August, for accrued recognized revenue, we're $134,000 ahead of budget year to date. I'll stop there on the revenue and take any questions. Right, not hearing any. Like I said, you know, this is actually, it's minus 127 because 90 of it hasn't happened. So add that back in, you're still 37,000 under budget. Events, the only reason this is over a little bit is because there's some platforms hopping, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was that came in, but other than that, you know, events is right on track, and you're $25,000 better in income. So it's more than taking care of itself. You know, outreach and chapters, again, are way under because we're not really spending to it. The rest, as you will see, is, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 under budget. So we're 170, almost $6,000 under budget in expenses. Couple that with the revenue, you actually have a cushion through 8 months of the year of $300 and almost $10,000. What that means is September, October, November, and December versus budget, you could lose 310,000. You won't, but you could, and still achieve budget, which was the budget for the year. Net income was $268. We basically put it at break even. So again, you know, the foundation is in a very good spot financially at this point.
So does this include the outstanding payments for San Francisco?
It does not.
Okay, so of that 309,000, we still have some hotel bills to pay.
You do. The revenue here does not include deferred revenue for San Francisco either.
Right.
So to your point, that 490 some odd thousand that I showed you in deferred revenue can get matched against whatever you have for, you know, there isn't really much in prepaid for San Francisco, but I suspect in the next month, you'll start seeing that ramp up.
Yeah. So, Lauren, can I take that as an action point for you, just simply to make sure that we're on top of our payments to the San Francisco venue, please?
So here's the narrative, and Vandana, as I know you would like to know, corporate membership is $204,000 ahead of budget. The individual memberships, we had a spike last month in August of about $32,000, so it caught up. We're only 7,300 under budget in individual memberships at this point, which again is not bad and being more than covered by the corporate. The rest of it, you all can read here. The expenses I went through, the net income, like I said, net income from July to August was up $84,000. Again, a fantastic number. What I want to point out here is based on your cash, based on the accounts payable and few liabilities other than just, making good on the deferred revenue for the events. At this point right now, if you just look at operating expenses at about 121,000 a month, the organization has 15.2 months of reserve. If you add in the events, it's 10.2, and again, the industry average is 6. So by all measures, you all are doing well. And I'm not going to tell you you need to go out and start spending money, but you have reserves that you can actually start doing more programmatical and strategic initiative activities with the organization, where in the past we might not have been able to do that. So with that, I will stop sharing and take any questions. Not hearing any. Again, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'll turn it back over to Andrew.
No worries.
Lisa Jones has
Oops.
said something. We will not make the number that was projected because that included all of a lifetime membership enrollments obtained during the last year's lifetime membership campaign during the 20th anniversary.
So the number that Lisa's talking about is the financial number, not the membership number.
Yeah, the 300,000. Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously if a person becomes a lifetime member, there's no renewal. And so we do need to basically assume when we come to do the next year's budget, we're a little bit cleverer about what considers a new lifetime membership for that financial year, rather than just simply assume that it's a linear number that we can actually just multiply through.
I would agree. I mean, this year, it wasn't taken into account. That's why the number is what it is. It won't get there, but it'll be closer. And again, with corporate membership really taking off, it's more than covering that. But when you budget for this coming year, and hopefully, you'll have the new platform set up, so tracking membership won't be as much of a challenge. You can exclude lifetime members, the 2-year members, look at what their term is, and then take all that into account as your budgeting for individual memberships going forward.
Yep. So Shelby, we're going to be, when the bylaws are passed, cross our fingers, touch some wood, we're going to be changing from corporate membership to corporate supporters. And so I'll talk to you about the tax implications of that, because the reality is that we'll have some corporate members who need to have their benefits preserved throughout the remainder of the time with us. But we also may need to recognise them slightly differently. I'm not sure. That's an open question. Whether they're a supporter or a member, I just don't know, because there will no longer be a member.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind when we're going through the process.
Maybe just ask Tom about it, because quite frankly, it's a good thing that we're making the change to make them supporters rather than members. But at the same time, they might be different.
So when we changed the way that we were recognizing revenue last year, to instead of recognizing it as it came in, which is a cash basis, which we do for the individual memberships, because at $50, the auditors have agreed that it's basically a contribution, not necessarily a true membership dues. So we've been recognizing over the 12-month period for sponsor, member, whatever designation you want to call it. But for the tax purposes, for reporting on the 990, I think the way that it's set up, Andrew, you'll be fine. The only small caveat to that is we modified it a little bit so that we wouldn't have to take a bad debt hit if a $25,000 corporate whatever decided not to pay. Yet we recognized over the 12 months, we recognize now when the funds come in, which is the modification to, and as long as it's told to the auditors, okay, now they audited 2019. So this is a little bit of a change from what we were doing. Again, you've got a person with a master's in taxation here. I'm sure she'll be able to, to explain it to the auditors, so you won't have a problem.
Okay, great. I mean, we're just trying to make ourselves a more normal GAAP aligned, not for profit. We want to be the simplest possible, like no dodgy crap going on.
Couldn't agree more. And this is a more conservative method than recognizing revenue that might not come in. You recognize it when the cash actually does come in. So it's a modification. It wouldn't be a write-up in the audit. It might be a notation in their footnotes, but that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And I'll say one last thing. So I'm leaving, but Shelby knows how to find me if she has any questions. So
Yes.
I know how to find you, no problem.
well, that's a whole different story. But yes, Dawn does too.
So we are up to 6,250 something members at the moment. So it has, as Tom mentioned, ticked up quite nicely. For the members, we have a 26% year-on-year growth. We honestly, this last month, we did make this 250 per calendar month number to get to 7,000 by the end of the year, but I just don't think it's likely at this point. We'll probably hit 6,500 without any difficulty, but 7,000 is a stretch goal indeed. We're just unlikely. Okay, and with that, let's go back to the minutes. Sorry, the agenda. So we've got one here, Avi. This is a motion that you're proposing to perform an audit of OWASP projects for semi-commercial and commercial projects. The OWASP Foundation has a number of projects that are semi-commercial, commercial in nature. These projects have been subject to various complaints and not necessarily in the best interest of OWASP or open source mission. Do you want to put some more background in for the board, and then we'll have a discussion?
Sure. I'm small because I'm still on recovery. So we have noticed there are some projects that are not fully non-commercial or semi-commercial. Some don't really comply cleanly with the project's policy. Excuse me. Some kind of fall into the gap of monetizing non-commercial projects. So part of that is to actually review the projects, and we have a lot of them. So we need to look through all of them and do an audit and see what is what, and see what actually needs to be reviewed more in depth, and what needs to be brought into compliance with a policy, or in extreme cases, we might need to remove some of them. Together with that, we might also need to update the project's policy to account for that, for those cases, because we already have a few of them, and there will probably be a few more in the future. It's a question of if we allow it, and if so, how. And I think the how is more important in this case.
So the motion is to actually get a audit of all of our projects to see if there's any that are misaligned.
Yes.
But also to actually identify gaps and bring those gaps in the policy to the board's attention. So we don't have to make any sort of vote today on changing the project policy or anything like that. It's literally just to get an audit and to identify gaps. And the foundation will do that in concert with the project committee. Is there any discussion?
Just one question from me. Who do we intend to have do the audit?
It's very likely to be Harold.
I'll try to do it with
Harold
the
plus
input
project
of the project committee. Yeah.
No, don't take our Harold. That's gonna
Given
be
that-
rough.
Given that we have a limited amount of Harold and not a lot of projects committee members and a lot of projects, is there anything we need to do to support the committee and Harold with additional volunteers? Glenn, Grant?
Yeah, I am concerned about the cost that this is going to incur. Right, it's going to take a lot of time from people who are already fairly resource constrained. Is there an easier approach? Is there a way that we can have projects self-assess? And then I don't know what.
I think the problem here is A, those gaps that are not well defined, and B, those that are not complying. So, I mean, say, yeah, I'm okay. Everybody can say I'm okay.
Well, I mean, so maybe let's break it up into two parts. The gaps that exist in the project's policy are the responsibility of the projects committee and us as the board, right? So having the projects committee review their policy and having us review the policy with proposed changes where we think there might be things that we need to tighten, then turning that into a questionnaire that you answer yes or no to, where there's no real wriggle room between a yes or a no answer, should highlight any projects that aren't all yeses, right?
We have seen some projects in the past that, to put it nicely, have skated the gray line.
Yeah,
of-
because
of that, and not necessarily because of gaps, just a little bit shady, shall we say? I don't want to mention anybody by name right now, but I'm sure you're familiar with some. I'm sure Glenn's
Well-
familiar with some as well. Oh, Bjorn's here as well. I'm sure Bjorn's familiar with some.
Yeah, Bjorn has actually shared some practices. Probably what we can do is, the best is that if Harold goes and start doing it, it would not be feasible to do it for all the projects so easily. So probably project committee has to chime in, lay down some common practices for everyone, and then they can start. I think if we don't have the best practices and start auditing, what would be the basis for auditing? It'll go all in the loop, because this has been in discussion for a very long time. And till the time we lay down certain recommendations, we would not be able to achieve it. And project committee would be the best to actually lay down those roles and responsibilities and rules, what we really want to follow, what we really want projects to follow,
Well, that's really the
and have
policy,
such kind of a practice in the project.
but that's really the policy, right? I mean, that's what they have to follow. Everything else is nice, but might highlight gaps.
Harold's got his hand raised.
Yeah.
So the way we've sort of done this in the past, and it's certainly the way we do it for most other entities that we deal with, is it's mostly on a case-by-case basis rather than a full audit. But, you know, because it comes down to what's the percentage of the projects that are improper. I can think of myself, you know, there may be two that, as Avi said, it's kind of a gray line that they skirt. That doesn't mean that they're over the line either, you know, so it's hard to make that call one way or the other without putting more effort into looking at those particular projects. So my concern here is that, do we audit the projects for the 1% that we think might be causing issues, or do we deal with them on a case-by-case? You know, they've been reported to the foundation and the project committee, so we need to take a look at them.
I do think that you might want to make use of Cunningham's law and basically say that all projects are fantastic and compliant with the policy, and then wait for the complaints to come in. That will help identify the correct solution quite quickly. We obviously do know some of the projects that are a little bit on that grey skirting edge through complaints. I do think I agree with Bjorn that essentially we need to identify what gaps need to be addressed so that we can actually say that this is grey or black and white. Glenn?
Yeah, indeed. I just wanted to chime in, and I think the project committee team created a good page that wasn't enforced yet, but indeed with best practices that projects should stray for. So I think we should indeed do it in two steps. First, indeed, review that best practices document that they created one more time to see if we still see some missing gaps in that one. And then based on the policy that we have and their best practices, what best projects should do when they start or have an OWASP project. Yeah, based on that, indeed, just have a review of all the projects that we have. And indeed, it is going to be a lot of work, but I do think we should, say it. I don't want to be biased to certain projects, right? If we have this and want to enforce it, we shouldn't handpick out this project might be or this one. We should actually make a baseline and do it properly for all our projects. But that implicates already that it would be a lot of work indeed for that to do so. But at least it's a fair approach then for everybody, for every project.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Vandana, would you like to take the vote?
Sorry, Grant had his hand raised.
Glenn has a hand raised. Glenn, you're on mute.
I lowered my hand again, but
Grant also had his hand. Nope.
Sorry, unmute. I just want to point out that Bjorn has posted the Good OWASP projects link, and that is a good start, but it uses words like avoids rather than being explicit and saying this is not allowed, or this is not what we want a project to do. An OWASP project doesn't do these things. We all write policies, right? We've all been involved in policy statements, and you understand that there are words like would and should and may and must, which are very, very different feelings, and it allows too much of that gray area. So maybe we need to work with one on the project committee on making these statements more explicit, being comfortable with the black and white nature of those statements, and then moving forward, assuming all projects are good, do any not meet these requirements?
One of the things I might recommend you do is look at the Apache Foundation. They have a lot of projects and a very tight definition of what a project can and can't do, whilst having a very liberal license. I think it might be very worthwhile to see what other organizations are doing in this space and see if that can actually help us. Avi?
So I hear the concerns. That totally makes sense. I agree with Grant that taking what Bjorn has and turning it into policy makes a lot of sense. The reliance on waiting for complaints probably doesn't work, because we know there are some problematic projects, and relatively speaking, there are much fewer complaints. People don't complain about it. They just say, okay, it's OWASP is still commercial. I've heard this multiple times in the past 2 weeks. OWASP is still commercial. I point at this kind of project without show us the projects, we'll deal with it, but it doesn't happen. So I think we need to be proactive in removing those types of projects or bring them into compliance.
Sure. And I see Bjorn said that soft language is intentional, but the reality is if we want to change the policy, some of these soft language will need to turn into hard language.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to be negative about that, Bjorn. I completely understand the necessity for it, but taking these guidelines and putting them into the policy in a more direct way might be what we need to do, or not. I mean, Avi, if people shrug their shoulders and say it's okay, that's what OWASP does, then maybe that's what our community wants. I'd like to hear them talk about it, though. I'd like to hear them speak up.
Yeah, I think that is living in a dream world. I think it's just the image of OWASP that's and the reputation that's getting damaged. People will leave from OWASP and will join other organizations that actually, you know, are not vendor neutral, right? Because at least that is what they expect and they do. So I'm not really, on that train of thoughts actually. That's not our mission. We are supposed to be vendor neutral, and yeah, there are some projects that are definitely not that. So it's really weird, and especially if our community will have that attitude. We need to do something about it real quick, because otherwise OWASP is not OWASP anymore, but something else.
So it has been a while since we've done a project leader town hall. I would encourage the project committee to hold consultation with the project leaders, even if the board and the project committee decide to stick to our core values. And I do encourage them to stick to our core values of openness and transparency. I think that is fairly non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned. However, it would be good to hear from the project leaders in a town hall setting. However,
I would agree with that.
Any more comments before I hand over to Vandana to take the vote? Okay, Vandana.
Thank you, Andrew. So I hope we all are okay with that. The motion about the OWASP Foundation, number of projects that are semi-commercial or commercial, they need to be reviewed by the audit committee, or especially the projects committee and Harold. Avi has sponsored it. Glenn has seconded it. We will start with the vote from the people that I see on my screen. I'll start off with Avi.
Yes.
Grant.
I'm going to abstain. I don't know how feasible it is for us to do the work. And I think we're asking a lot from the project committee.
Yeah. Glenn.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Jubin.
I'm with Grant here. I'm going to abstain.
And a yes from my side.
Okay, that's a pass.
So we have 5 yes, 4 yes, and 2 abstain. Grant and Jubin abstain.
Yep.
Thank you.
Motion carried.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion passed.
Yep. Vandana, would you like to continue with reading the next one?
Absolutely. So the next motion is to merge OWASP Women and AppSec Diversity and Inclusion Committee and OWASP Outreach Committee to form a OWASP Diversity and Inclusion Outreach Committee. Now, the main purpose is that we started off with Women in AppSec, then we moved to Diversity in AppSec. Now, what we really want is that the kind of work that these committees are doing, this is somewhat similar. We have the same intent where we want to reach out to diverse candidates, diverse perspectives. So these two committees have discovered that many of their activities are co-joined and they're very much aligned. So these committees should actually get merged. Now, we have representation from both the committees. We have Spiros, we have Zoe from the committee. And I would talk more about that before I move ahead. Spiros?
Hi, everyone. I don't have much to add. Vandana explained the matter very, very well. We do the same things or similar things, and a lot of our actions are very close. It makes a lot of sense. It will strengthen, I hope it will strengthen both communities.
Anyone has any questions for Spiros or Zoe?
Forever.
I have,
Okay.
who's gonna chair this new committee? Is there gonna be another election for that?
Yes.
Okay, so
Not-
co-chair isn't an option.
Well, you
Yeah.
can do whatever you want. You need to have 3 leaders who are members and a maximum of 5 leaders. So if you want, appoint yourselves co-leaders, but make sure you've got at least 3 and a maximum of 5.
Yeah,
You would have
you don't necessarily have to do an election. You can just, like Andrew said, pick amongst yourselves.
Yeah, and Zoe, I think when you talk about designations, you can actually co-chair as well, in my perspective. Andrew, I hope that's okay.
That it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to
yeah.
find volunteers, so if they want to be called something
Yeah.
different, let them be.
Yeah, designations doesn't matter. Your intent matters. You're happy to support the initiative. That's what matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would
Um,
I would vote for that. I don't know. What do you think, Spiros?
I don't think it matters much. We are both volunteers. From my side of
Right.
things, you can be the leader, can be the co-lead. We will still do the same things. How are we called? Doesn't matter. Maybe we can also be called a Royal Galactic Emperor Excellency of Mankind.
Avi
Zero.
and Dawn has some perspective about it. So I would we'll start with Avi first, and then Dawn. Dawn's hand is raised, so I will let both of them speak. Avi?
I'd actually like to hear a bit more from Zoe on the benefits for the WIA and the diversity committee, because this sounds like a win for the outreach, but it sounds very much a narrowing of the focus of the diversity committee.
Okay, so operationally, I think things are going to be a lot smoother if we merge. Based on sponsorships and everything. In the past, the closest it's gotten to streamlined is with the help of people like John and John McCoy and the outreach committee. And we want to keep that going as far as operations go. And I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't work together. I think it would definitely make sense. Financially, again, everything really in terms of logistics. My one request is that at least the WIA committee mailing list and wiki page continue to exist separately, because there's content specifically that I put there that I think makes sense to keep focused on diversity.
So I'm still curious, because looking at, well, I couldn't find the officially voted on charter, but based on the purpose and the scope on the respective committee pages, yes, there's overlap, but mostly by people. There's a lot of the same people involved, so sure, I mean, it might be smoother operationally because of that. But as far as the purpose and the scoping goes, it feels like, yes, there's a little bit of overlap on the edges, but it's not. It's not like a Venn diagram will be like a small overlap and not full circles. So it feels like if you merge the group, you'll be losing out a lot on both sides, but especially on the diversity side.
I would be happy to work the purpose and scope if that makes sense in order to achieve what we want to achieve. Does that answer your question?
I feel like to do that, you'd be dropping a lot of what is so important about the diversity committee. I mean, to me, and maybe I'm wrong here, because I admit I'm only slightly familiar with a diversity committee and barely not at all with outreach committee. But to me, it feels like if this was a corporation, the outreach committee is the parallel of the marketing department, and the diversity committee is the parallel of the diversity officer that does a lot more than outreach. There's a lot of internal stuff going on, and you drive a lot of stuff internally. And if there's problems operationally, perhaps we can work on that. Perhaps we can focus on supporting the committee with whatever you need to do that. Because I think there's a lot that your committee needs to do besides outreach.
So, Avi, are you asking them to recharter? I mean, to clarify and recharter?
I don't know.
So
If there's a problem with the way they are right now, then perhaps that might be the solution. I don't think that merging the two committees, in my mind, I don't see the upside here. And I feel like we're losing out on one of our most important committees.
So, Harvey, if I can jump in here, I think the intention is not to Venn diagram these two committees and only do what the overlapped area is, right? The intention is to add to take the scope and purpose of the two committees and make that a single committee's charter. So they'll be doing the sum of both sides, which means that the diversity committee will also be doing outreach. And it's primarily to avoid us losing our outreach committee completely, because right now they're effective in getting funds and getting resources to do outreach things, but they are very much under stress and pressure when it comes to the resources they have at hand with regards to people. And because there is a concern with individuals being on multiple committees, it seemed like the easiest answer was, all right, both groups are doing these two things together anyway to make sure that these things get done. Let's repurpose, rescope those two committees to form a single one that does the things the two were doing previously. And I've now jumped in front of Dawn, which I didn't want to do. Sorry, Dawn.
Dawn, do you want to talk about some
Sure.
designations?
Yeah, a few things. I like what Grant said. First is the diversity committee has people coming on, but they weren't, in my opinion, getting the actions done in the sense of reaching out enough to bring people to the committee and get involved, which the outreach committee is doing a great job of doing that. So based on putting them together, we're still all reaching, the goal is to reach out to people of diversity, women, all these different things is what the outreach committee is doing. So now they'll work together to do it, which I personally think it should merge, because the goal is to reach out to all these people. Just on a technical point, everyone said you cannot pick the office's titles. It's already in policy what the titles have to be. So I would prefer, just my opinion, that we stick to policy and what the offices are, like all committee says in policy, and not make up new titles and stuff, because then we have to change that policy if you do that, and the board has to vote on that.
Okay, got it.
So
Thanks,
yeah,
Dawn.
so yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And policies aren't set in stone. So if you do want to change the policies, then Galactic President could be added to the policy if enough people supported it.
Right, but just starting out, just if we have to put in to change the policies if you do that.
Yeah. So I just want to highlight, Avi, just really briefly. I understand your issues, but I do support this merge. I think it'll be very useful because it'll bring together two pots of money that'll allow them to do more and be a bit more focused about what it is that they're going to support. I'd really like to see more things like AppSec Village, diversity, like a diversity village at our events and things like that. I think honestly having a core group of volunteers working together on a very similar outcome makes sense. Just have less bureaucratic overhead. I think that'd be good. So there's my 10 cents. Avi?
Thanks, Doctor. I appreciate that. Grant, Dawn, you helped me understand a bit better. I want to ask Zoe one specific question. How much of what the committee does is outreach? The existing committee up until now.
I think a lot, because our industry and therefore our committee of essentially minority members are a minority. So outreach is a big important, any growth that we've had, which is, far slower than I'd like, is a result of outreach.
Okay, so in that context, it makes sense. And I thought it was more diversity becoming part of outreach, and you're saying expand and focus more on outreach. But perhaps what we really need is to have the diversity committee spending a lot more on the things that are not outreach, inreach. All the stuff in all the other scope and purposes that you have on the committee page that are not about outreach. It's mentorship, it's training, it's financial support, a lot of other things that you have here that I think are wonderful and very important to do, which have nothing to do with outreach. So I'm just worried combining the committees sounds like all the things that are not outreach will be even more put to the side and even more ignored than they were if you say that they weren't paid attention to so much till now.
Yeah, and some of what I view to be, the important part of that internal aspect is why I request that we keep the WIA mailing list. Because I want that discussion people to reach out to, about how do I represent my, my diversity group within my chapter. I would like feedback from the rest of the committee, and I think, they should feel free to CC whoever, whatever group they might want to CC, but I think that ultimately they would probably feel more comfortable reaching out to a diversity specific mailing list. And also just the way I've highlighted diverse contributors on the page itself. I think that we should keep that. So the reasoning, again, what I view as those internal aspects are exactly why I've made those requests. And again, please let me know if I'm not answering your question.
I think it makes sense, and I'm very much in favor of that, and I see Andrew also says that. So basically, it's the other way around from what I understand. Basically, what you're saying is that you want to subsume the outreach committee into the diversity committee, and not the other way around.
As in not subsume outreach into the other. I don't think it's directional. I think it's just a merge. I don't think there's really a direction to that merge.
There's always
just logistically, if we could keep additional kind of avenues of for discussion that are separate.
Zoe, is the biggest problem personnel, like volunteers? For most of the volunteers on the committees are on both committees. So is that the biggest problem here that we're trying to solve?
I guess so. So a lot of it is, people reach out to me very specifically, and I really wish I had time, but it's not only, I guess probably Spiros and I each being overworked and perhaps over redundant task items, but it's also that by, having one-on-one discussions, they're not getting everyone's input. But that's something that I hope to improve upon, over time. But I think that, streamlining those processes and making it more possible to actually grow with either of our committees is to merge. Again, let me know if I wasn't answering your question.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Okay, so we've got Dawn, Jubin, then Spiros. Dawn?
Dawn?
Okay, I'm just gonna put this out there because I was under a different impression than what Zoe just said. So my thought was you would combine these two committees. There wouldn't be separate mailing lists per se or separate pages, but they would combine to become one, meeting, say under the outreach, the new page, you would have a whole section about diversity, a whole section about the different topics and also the stuff that Spiro's done. And so then if you send out an email to these combined groups, the subject would be diversity at this conference, but to start doing that, everything's in one place, and then you get everyone. And if they wanted to click on, like Kelly's stuff, membership, corporate sponsorship, someone could click on and see the different levels, just like you would do the outreach. You can see different ways to get involved in outreach in OWASP. But to have it, well, you go to, if you only want to do outreach and diversity, you go here to a completely different page. Correct me, I mean, I might be wrong, but that's not the thought process I thought we were doing.
I just want to highlight that the comment I made just before. We do need a diversity inclusion page. Many of the funding requests that I've seen require you to link to a landing page for diversity inclusion programs.
Yeah, we would have that, but wouldn't it be part of the whole outreach thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's Jubin?
Hey, Zoe Spiros. I think a lot of the questions you're hearing here is specifically about like the branding and marketing potentially around this, and not specifically what is trying to be achieved here. So I get the problem, and I'm supportive, but specifically Zoe and Spiros, what can we do? So you guys get along. What can we do to make sure that this community doesn't have power plays in the future, and the ethos of like women in AppSec isn't undermined. The women of the outreach committee isn't the purpose of the outreach committee isn't undermined. Like that's really the core of the question of like, when you guys move on to other things, and now we have this one committee that's doing a large set of stuff. What can we do to safeguard kind of the core values, excuse me, that the different committees had asked for originally?
I mean, my only thing is, that diverse, and if there's some hesitancy to join due to being, an underrepresented group member, then I want them to have a place to ask questions. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be the separate mailing list, but that's just why I propose that, why not just keep those? But I think that could be approached a different way. I don't think it has to be by keeping the mailing list separate. And that's my only thing. That's my only thing, a kind of comfort zone. Apparently safe space is the wrong word to use, but I can't think of a better one at the moment.
Totally.
But that's my one thing.
Yep. So again, sorry, like, and sorry, I put my hand down, but just to follow up, like, I don't think, and then I'm not hearing in anyone's voice that nobody, like anyone's pushing back on this. It's just like, how do we make sure that like women in AppSec is not being undermined when we combine this committee? How do we make sure that their voice is equally heard, and it's not just part of a larger cog so it goes unheard? It is really the core of, at least concern is too strong of a word, but I don't have a better word for it. That's the core of my concern.
Oh, I mean, I think, previous WIA event attendees, and, members who aren't officers, or, who aren't myself, or who aren't on the call, might have different answers to that. So I don't want to speak for everybody who might have something to say about that. But again, I think minimal, as long as, because, I think, again, because due to the overlapping volunteering for the same reason, it's in it, the same players will still be representing diversity no matter what we call ourselves, and we'll still be there as much as possible for other people seeking that. So yeah, I mean, as long as that's not lost when other people have, specific diversity related contributions, as long as that's not lost, and I don't think it will be.
Yeah,
and
I think
maybe keep the logo.
Everyone, I just want to be mindful of the time. and I know we all have a lot of questions. If everyone is okay, can we take it offline like an executive meeting or an e-vote? If everyone is okay, I'm just being mindful of the time. If everyone is okay.
But there's other,
Sorry, there are a bunch of hands up, but I think we're close to taking a vote here. No? Am I reading the room wrong?
do you hear the input from the rest of the people before you vote or no?
I think we still have a lot of questions. Spiros has his
Got it.
hands up. Because I think people are concerned about how that'll be managed, especially from a logo perspective, all of those things, even though these discussions have been done between the two. I would say that I know we all have those questions and the leaders have decided, and we would let them decide how it's going to be taken further from a diversity in AppSec perspective. So it used to be called VIA. Now people call it as DIA, which is diversity in AppSec. So I would say that it's between the team to set up a process, how exactly it will be followed so that there is no confusion between the two. And when it comes to logo, mailing list, all of this, it will be left on the team to decide, the committee to decide how they want to keep it together and separate, if that helps in some way.
Let's hear from Spiros and Lisa,
Yeah.
who had their hands up.
Spiros?
Thank you. So there is, as committees, as committee members, we are accountable to you as the board for everything we do, right? So how this, making sure that one committee doesn't complete, one initiative doesn't take over the other, or making sure that we give or that our output gives equal opportunities and equal energy, or like maybe equitable energy to both causes, is something that we can promise, but in the end, you will have to see for yourselves depending on our output, right? So what if, and in the end, we are already in practice kind of merged. We have the same members or similar members, and different initiatives haven't suffered as much, or maybe haven't suffered, period. So I think most of the concerns here can be mitigated by us or staff compiling metrics on our initiatives and on our membership, and presenting these metrics to the board once a year or every 6 months, or at the cadence that you decide, and the board deciding then on how committee should move forward. We can merge now provisionally, and if in 6 months to a year we see that diversity has declined, then we focus more on diversity. If in 6 months to a year we decide that there is no developers in the community anymore, or like there is less, we focus more on developers. If both things have happened, then we take another action. But preempting it, I'm not sure if it will help us much.
Thank you, Spiros. Lisa?
Okay. I think I kind of agree with Dawn. I don't, and in a sense that if we're going to merge it, let's merge it. It sounded like that was the plan, but with exceptions or one-offs. Outreach, I thought, was part of our culture. Like every committee should be doing it. There shouldn't, chapters should be outreaching. All chapters should be an outreach. And I thought, not that it's not important, but and Dawn does co-marketing. We all do that as far as outreach, but yeah. So that part was a little, we've been around for 20 years. We still need to do it, but I think it needs to be done from every committee, not just one committee. And my other concern is tasks and deliverables. Like, are they being completed, you know, as far as different committees are concerned, and the budget that they're going to need for next year? Because I'm sure we don't want to get hit with some kind of event that's going to be coming for one of these committees that they want to go to, that's going to cost us a lot of money. So there's a lot of things that comes with committees that I don't think we're doing that need to be done to be successful. That's it.
Looks like from the conversation, everyone is happy to have this committee merged, and we should go ahead with this motion. But there will be few things this committee will be laying down themselves, especially to make sure that it works properly. And we are actually embracing diversity, women in AppSec, all of these things, while making sure that there's a proper outreach which is happening and we have more people around. So if everyone is okay, I'll just give it few minutes if you still have any questions before we start with the vote.
If it's okay, I'd like to take this on to additional discussion, as you said, either offline or executive session. I feel like there are additional aspects to consider.
Are you asking this to be tabled, or are you asking this to be
Either tabled or executive session if we have time at this meeting, but for now, yeah.
okay? So there's been a motion to table this motion. Vandana, do you want to just get a quick show of hands as to whether or not the board wishes to table this motion or go ahead with a vote?
So I would just ask the board members, Jobin, Grant, are you okay to table the motion? Glenn? We can have a Bill?
I'm ready
Everybody
to
want-
vote.
Okay. So Avi, you're the only one who wants to table. That it's going to go to a vote. Okay, Vandana.
Sure. So I would start off with a vote for the people that I see on my screen. Jobin,
Yes.
Avi,
No.
Grant,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Glenn,
No.
a yes from my side.
Okay.
So we
4.
4 and 2.
There is still work that the committees need to do now. They need to go and reform, essentially recharter, to ensure that the charter is properly in place. So that's the next step.
Yep.
Just a final note on the vote that we just had. I do think the board should keep an eye on this, and we can always reverse this decision and ask the committees to dissolve into their individual committees if it seems like it's required. But Zoe, I was personally against this because I was worried about underrepresentation, and Zoe convinced me of otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I think
absolutely.
the support will still be there just because of who's involved.
And I think Spiros is right. We just, and it's just effectively what you've said, we need to focus on the outcomes. And as long as the committee is achieving the outcomes that the charter covers, then things are in good place.
Yep. Anyway, congratulations, Spiros and Zoe. If you need any help with the rechartering, please let me know.
Yeah, you can reach out to us for any help that's needed. So the motion passed to successfully merge the two committees, OWASP Diversity in AppSec and Outreach Committee.
And
And
can
the
I
team would come back to us.
And on behalf of, I think myself for sure, and I think the board, Zoe and Spires, like, thank you so much for the work that you do. I look at the chats and the message boards, and it's amazing the amount of work you guys get accomplished. So thank you for doing what you do.
Of course. Thank you all. You're all amazing.
Thank you. So the next motion is to grant the executive order a general power of attorney. The motion has been sponsored by Grant and second by Avi Doglan. I would let Grant and Avi speak more about the motion.
It's well, Andrew has it up on the screen here. It's literally just for us to allow Andrew to take action to ensure that the formation of the Netherlands entity can take place. So it's just a formal requirement that we give him this ability. Sounds like you have trucks in your area, Andrew.
Yeah, it's unfortunately my local council doesn't provide trash, and so everybody has their own trash provider, and there's at least 20 trucks every day go past my window. I will mute.
Which is unfortunate because if the board have any questions about this motion, then they really need to go to you, Andrew.
It's relatively straightforward. It's really, I'm acting as the power of attorney to establish the new Netherlands entity. I will work with the board if there is a requirement to have a board in the EU in the Netherlands. There was one in Belgium. I'm not sure of the Netherlands. We may need to appoint the first board. We may need to go to an election, or we may just simply delegate someone from the board to be from the global board to be on the EU board. It's hard to say at this very moment, but this actually allows us to go ahead and establish this new entity. Jubin.
Andrew, two questions. One, has Martin provided feedback to anyone on this? I saw the chat, Grant. I didn't really see a definitive response.
Okay. Yes. So Martin effectively seconded it, but because he wasn't going to be on tonight's call, Avi stepped up. So Martin is in support of this. Okay, we have that in the email chain.
He understands the intricacies much better than most of us. The other thing, I didn't see an end date to this power of attorney. Is that by design? Not that I would change the response to this.
This is only in relation to the establishment of this entity.
So it's
got it.
It's not
Got it. So it's effectively it's null and void as once entity is established.
Correct.
So but what does that mean for electing a board or electing a temporary board for said entity?
I will be having a meeting with the Netherlands. There was one last Thursday where Tom and Shelby attended. I was supposed to be there, but unfortunately had a bit of a family emergency, which I was unable to attend. I will make sure that we understand what the composition of a board, if there is required to be one, what it will be. When we started out the EU entity that's in Belgium at the moment, we appointed a board. It is up to this board, I believe, to appoint if there is going to be one, and then run elections at some future point.
Okay, so that last note, Andrew, is the interesting portion. Do we know that for sure? I would hate for us to get locked out. Okay.
I do not know that. I will find out for you.
So my worry is kind of like the issue we had with the Delaware and voting requirements for changing of the bylaws. I'm worried of we establish this entity and then this board and you are locked out of board decisions and getting quorum there to bootstrap this.
I will get an answer for you.
And I apologize for not putting this in the email chain. COVID really hurt this time.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Brain fog?
I just was sick in bed and ignoring the entirety of the world. And then my kids got it and getting them to come back, and yeah, we're good now.
Yep. Glenn?
Yeah, I was wondering, maybe it could also be of use that it could also be present in that meeting that you have as a yeah, I'm also Dutch, so it's also easy for me maybe to look some things up and do some double checking if you want.
Yep, that'd be good. I'll be appreciative of that. And
All
as
right.
treasurer, I think it'd be good for the board to be represented.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
We have hands raised by Glenn. Glenn wanted to ask something. And even Jubin has hand raised. Glenn?
I just did. Was good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Same,
Jubin?
sorry. I just forgot to put my hand up.
Sure. Over to you, Grant.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to bring this to a vote.
Anyone has any questions about the motion? I'll go once, twice, third time. I will start with a vote. Jubin? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Avi?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And a yes from my side. So the motion has passed unanimously.
Yep.
There were
So,
6 and
so thank you so much for that. But there is now a requirement for a wet ink signature. I will provide a wet ink signature for the lawyers, but I might grab this as a document when we're together in November to get people's signatures. And the fact that Martin may not be there is okay because I believe everybody else will be at the face-to-face in November.
Martin
So-
should be there too.
Oh, good. Very, very good. I was worried that he wasn't going to be coming.
I think it's just a question about the timing.
Very good. And so thank you so much for giving me the power of attorney.
We hope you don't abuse it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did notice the bottom line that he has to do it in accordance with our wishes, Avi.
Absolutely.
Hey, Andrew, since you have the power of attorney, can you elect yourself galactic president of the...
Oh,
good
boy. Oh, hilarious. Okay. I think we've actually done the meeting with Shelby. If the board wishes to have more of a discussion with Shelby, she is still here. But I think in terms of time, maybe we go to the town halls and engagement. Or Fandana, what do you want to do?
so I want to do more of town halls and engagement with the community. We have done in the past, from the past few months, I know there have been a lot going on. But we need to start doing more of town halls and connections with the community so that they know what's happening with us. We have members, but we want more members. So we need to make sure that what we do as a community, we have staff members, people should know about. We have board members, we have chapter leaders, project committee. I think as a town hall, we need to share these perspective. I know this might be a repeat information, but can be really helpful for the community, especially for the new members, because they have questions around it. And we need to take questions from the leaders as well, that what's going right, what's not going right, and what we can do to make sure that things can change. We have made committees. We need to introduce those committees to the people who are there, so that there'll be more engagement between the community, staff, board, and everyone around.
Okay, it looks like Jubin has to leave.
Yeah.
You still have quorum, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, basically, as Jubin notes, that we no longer have any more votes, so that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm very
it's
supportive
just a
of these.
discussion.
Yep, I'm very supportive of these additional town halls, but best to have them with a bit of focus is my main. I'm putting my hand up here. I think we haven't had a project leader one for a long time, and I think the idea of getting to new members is a good one as well. But we've also got the opportunity of actually meeting with the community at the November conference. So maybe other ideas that you would like to delve into.
Anyone has any questions?
No.
Okay. I do think the first one should be the projects, Vandana. I really do
Right.
think, in concert with the project committee, I'll attend the project committee meeting the next time, and let's get that gap analysis and try to find out whether the project leaders sit on the fence, as it were, to freemium slash semi-commercial, full commercial. I think it'd be really good, but there may be other topics the project leaders want to talk about as well. I think project leaders, it's been a long time since we've met with them, and so I think that should be the first one off the ranks. But I think it's a really good idea about the new members. I haven't thought about that one.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of them.
Yeah. So last week when we shared the different promotions around that, a lot of people came back and asked about that.
Very much so.
I think if everyone is okay, we can go ahead and move to the next discussion item, which is around policies, post bylaws. So, Andrew, do you like to talk about it? Because I want to have more information around it. And Avi would be leading the policy section, so I would like him to also share some details around it.
Sure. So there are some things that we will need to do. There are some policies, such as the membership policy, that will need to incorporate some detail around the classes of membership. And the reason we need to do this is that we don't want to be modifying the bylaws all the time. And so we put the detail into the policies that were previously in the bylaws. It should theoretically mean the bylaws will need less modification in the future. So this means we'll have to define what a leader is. It will have to define what a complementary member is and things like that, which we don't currently do. Yeah, that's a good idea with the town halls. I'll put a note in my little book here, quarterly. Have a calendar. And so there are other policies as well. It was always my intention that policies, we should be reviewing about a third of them every year. And we're a little bit late for some of them, but the reality is that there is a need to add some level of policy review for membership, for some of the leadership agreements. I think there should be probably a single agreement for the board of directors and the leader agreements, because they're very much the same. They're just, that you will hold up some, the code of conduct and things like that. So, Avi, from your perspective, you've been involved in many of the discussions around the chapter policy and around the regional chapter policy. I think that's one of the very first ones that we need to get fixed. How do you think we need to get that restarted?
Well, a lot of effort went into it and kind of got frozen, and I'm worried that picking that up might be duplicating efforts because nobody remembers where that's at. But I think some of the ones that have a respective committee involved, like the chapters committee, just give them the specifics of what they need to do. And in that case, part of it is the AMS that we need to update, the regional and so on. Some of the others don't have a specific committee, so I think we need to make a list of the ones and a prioritized list of how we want to go about dealing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, start grinding through them.
Okay.
Perhaps while we're in person, we can get a jump start on some of it.
Sure. Well, I can certainly provide you a list of the ones that will need to be modified for the new bylaws. and I do believe that the chapter policy that is well overdue and is close. And one of the other ones is the privacy policy as well. We need to have something that's GDPR compliant, and whilst not actually complying with ourselves, I think there is a lot of legalese in there, and I think Martin has a view that fewer policies are better policies, and so maybe we should actually think about, are there too many policies? Are some of the policies too long? What are the priorities? So let me get a list of the prioritized list to you. I'll share that on the global board, and then maybe the board can take up what it considers to be the priority policies at the November meeting. Has an agenda been worked out for the November meeting yet?
We have some preliminary topics. We haven't hardened that yet.
Okay. I don't have much more to discuss on this except for the fact that we need to keep on moving. There is actually a motion this board will have to do after the bylaws have been passed to confirm all of the previous votes of all of the previous boards. I'm going to get you the lawyers will draw that motion up, but effectively it will cement in place the legitimacy of the previous decisions, more or less. But I don't think that's got much to do with policy. It's just got to do with the fact that we want to make sure that there are no discussions around, the adoption of a particular policy back in 2020 can be thought of as being invalid because maybe that wasn't the right thing at the time. Are there any other discussion points on policies that the board wishes to discuss before we move on to the next point? Okay, Vandana.
Right. So the next point is discussion on improving transparency over grants. So Glenn would discuss more ideas around it. Glenn, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we've been talking a lot about grants and how we should proceed with that. Currently, for my own project, the security knowledge framework, we also have a grant from Contra Security. I think also the idea was actually that we had in these board meetings an overview, at least a highlight where we are with the grants, are they acknowledged yet or not, etc. I missed it in today's overview. But yeah, that also touches the topic that I wanted to discuss more and get your feedback on, is indeed the transparency. Because what I saw so far on, for example, the grant policy page, it doesn't really specify that we, for example, have a dedicated page next to the grant policy page where we announce which grants are actually incoming, when they're starting, how big is the grant, what is the short description of the grant, and also where actually people in our community can help in fulfilling these grants that we get. Because in my opinion, a lot of these work that are defined in these grants can also be executed by our community. We have a lot of people who would really want to contribute, but because there's no central place, there's no location where people actually can find this information. So also, there's no transparency and also no involvement with the community. So the idea.
Glenn, we've lost your audio.
Still can't hear you, Glenn.
My head died.
Ah.
That is explaining a lot, actually. So we do have a couple of good rules there, but nothing about, hey, you should post them here. Here's actually the description of the grant, the amount of budget, etc. Now I'm actually trying to with the grant that we got from SKF, also to see what a structure could be, and we actually thought of the idea to create dedicated GitHub issues with specific tags in them, and also a clear description of, for example, when is this item being accepted as completed, and then also per item in the GitHub, for example, to put a number on it, what you could get by picking up that item. And again, to make it really open and transparent, and also to, well, engage our community in hopefully, helping us building these things and improving and giving the opportunity to help. So I also wanted to, hear your feedback, as this is a trial, that we're going to do now with our own project for this grant. And I would love to hear other suggestions or approaches, or to this approach for making it more transparent and also be able to involve our community into it.
So one of the things that I was just about to show you was that there are a number of sites out there to help manage grants, which I think might be the way for us to go. Some of the grants have explicitly quite large requirements in terms of things you need to provide over and over and over again, and things that need to be uniquely identified, and there are sites to help you do this. And so I wanted to show that there are websites out there that can help us manage the grants, and this is part of that process that I'm getting help with from Teresa Huff. But we are not there yet. I won't claim we are anywhere close to picking a site. We are nowhere close to picking a thing. In the meantime, we do actually have Jira. It might be worthwhile for us to actually use Jira until we're ready to pick a website to manage our grants. But I think having a dashboard that allows a central repository of what OWASP is prepared to issue, having project leaders particularly generate pieces of work that can be funded. These are important tasks for us, and we don't have anything in place at the moment, and that's why I'm actually engaging Teresa to help us with that. But yeah, fundamentally, there is software out there that can help you manage this and have a dashboard.
Yeah, and I'm also really looking now, how we can make the overhead for our community as little as possible, especially when we want to, involve them and pick up things. I mean, pointing them, for example, to another website where they need to create an account or whatever, or do certain jump through hoops. I think that's not very user friendly, I would say. But mostly developers, when you build software, they are acquired with, for example, GitHub, GitLab. Well, we are using GitHub, so using that as a mechanism, as a structure, creating pull requests, making sure you put the description and the tickets there. Yeah, at least it is a tool they already know and how to use it. Yeah, I really want to make the overhead in terms of paperwork and bureaucracy and using different platforms to manage all those things. In the end, we just want the community to get involved and help building awesome stuff, and benefit also from the grants that we get to build these things, right? And I think we have a lot of sharp minds and a great community that can help us with that. So yeah, for this approach that we took now, it was really about how can we still have the transparency, the auditability, and be at the same, come to the developers to help them to focus on actually building and then doing the stuff in the grant. Then yeah.
There's a huge life cycle involved in grant management, and we should be seeking grants, not just giving out grants. For example, the Linux Foundation has a platform called LFX, which they use for this purpose. I agree with you. Having a simpler process would be better, but there are often a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to get grants from, say, for example, some of these larger foundations. If we are only thinking about projects, yes, GitHub will work fine, but we're also thinking about chapters, we're also thinking about events, we're also thinking about overall programs. So I think we need to identify our needs and work through what it is that it looks like. At this very moment, we've been managing it through Jira, which means manual dashboarding. There is a slide that Howard prepares. It's in the materials, I believe. But if we get 100 grants and we have, say, 250 odd projects that want to have a little piece of work done, it's got to be scalable, it's got to be manageable. And we've only got 6 staff, and in particular, we've only got 1 Harold. I think we need to concentrate on how do we make that work. And that's why I've engaged Teresa to help us with this scalability problem.
Indeed, and please remind me, when is Teresa is going to deliver some type of advice around grants?
She's already done so. There's a little bit of work that she's been doing. There's a why OWASP document, which many funders want. We are now working through a survey, which will be going out very shortly. So the survey will be going out to our internal people first, and then go to external people later, which we'll do via social media and whatnot on LinkedIn and on Twitter. What we're trying to do is figure out how likely it is that internal resources will help with creating like project funding, refer people to grants and things like that. We need to understand, is it likely that our community will support our fundraising?
Well, actually, for my own project, SKF, there are indeed, I think like 6-7 people ready to actually pick up the tickets and work on the grant that we got as a project, and actually deliver on a ticket-based event using GitHub and building the requirements that were defined in the grant, for example, for SKF. But I do agree, if you are really going to look for the bigger things next to the projects, I do agree that we need to have a better more space of scalability issues that you mentioned, with transparency and visibility, and I also don't know which grants are currently now accepted or running and which can be picked up by our community. So I think maybe also on short term we should do something.
Yeah, we're getting to a place with the work that Teresa's doing that will allow us to actually go to the Craig Newmarks, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and other big funders and ask for a decent package. But the reality is we've got to have some work packages defined. We can think big like the Linux Foundation did with the Alpha Omega project. They've been funded to the tune of like $11 million. Imagine what we could do with $11 million. Like, they're literally trying to secure the top 1,000 open source projects. We should be thinking big. And if we're just thinking about triaging bugs and things like that, then we could do that probably with GitHub sponsors. But I think we should start thinking big. Clone Harold
twice. I'm just worried about the time span on that. That's all.
There's definitely a case to be made that funding a grant maker to actually get something done is going to be really important. But we also need to know that we can do the work, and that's what this first survey is about. Like, yes, for every SKF out there that is actually prepared, like 6 or 7 people prepared to do work, we have plenty of inactive projects, and we need to understand how many projects are prepared to actually define packages and get things done. If someone says, yeah, we want to give you $10,000, $20,000, what would you do with it? Or more to the point, here is something that we would like to do. Go, OWASP, go find somebody to give us this money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so there's two different types of grants. One is a sustaining grant, which would get us the clones of Harold, and one is a specific type of grant where a particular piece of work is agreed to be done. We need to be careful about taking those second ones to make sure that we can do it. If it's something like the Google Summer of Code, where you're hiring a junior resource to speculatively get something done, that's fine, but it shouldn't be a lot of money. If we're actually asking for a significant chunk of money, we're going to be delivering. And getting the OWASP Foundation, which may not have the technical resources on board to complete something, we need to be a little bit careful about agreeing to some of those. I'm also just very cognizant of the time. So
yeah, I just wanted to hear the other board members as well, what their opinion is about this. And then I guess we can wrap this point up.
I really do think we should be fundraising and we should seek grants and we should absolutely be seeking donations. This is something that's really important to me. It's our next source of $250,000. It's our next source of the next $1 million. We haven't been doing a lot of it, and many nonprofits, this is their lifeblood. This is how they get their income, is fundraising. We've been very lucky that our events and our membership pays for our programs so far, but we've never really gone ahead and done fundraising. I really do think, given a proper program, this is the next $250,000 next year. Really is.
As much as I'd like to have something happen quickly, I'm very cautious of the fact that we have to balance the line between doing work that is at the behest of corporate sponsors versus doing the right work for the community. We need to do this right. We need to do it properly. We've had a couple of grants where maybe that was not as clear, and we decided not to do the work on it. So, Glenn, if you can come up with a quick way to answer those kinds of questions, I'm all ears. Right? You know that. But I think Andrew's got the slow and steady approach laid out. It's the secure way to get to where we want to be. And I think if we find specific pieces of work and specific grants, then we can have specific conversations around making those happen. And there's no reason that as a project, you can't go out and seek those, right? In fact, consider this my view, not necessarily the board's. All project leaders, if you're watching this back again, go out and find grants to do the work you want to get done. We will support you in getting them through. It may not be easy. It might be some hoops for us to jump through, but we definitely want that. And we want to do it, like Andrew said, in a bigger way, right? So that we can bring in funds and say, hey, project A, B, C, we'd like those projects to go in these directions. We know that you have these backlog items. Here's some money to get it done.
I think we have some details, information around the grant, because that's something which we need as a community to grow, to expand. We need it. It's just that how we're going to channelize it, that's most important. So Glenn, I think you would be helping out Andrew to lay down some processes around it. Harold takes care of the things around grant as well. And he just mentioned in the chat as well that he'll be setting up a page where people can follow through the process for the grant so that it can be easier for everyone. We have had issues in the past. So if we have a page where everyone can land and just follow through the process, create a ticket, I think it'll be much more smoother.
Glenn, I did drop into the chat there. If you search GitHub topics for grant management, there are at least 3 projects out there that are designed to use GitHub to manage grants. And it does cover the whole process, Andrew. Maybe worth looking into as well.
Yeah, I'll have a look at it.
Yep, thanks, same here.
I think we are at the top of the hour and we don't have any more business, Andrew.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the next meeting is on October 25th at 12 p.m. US Eastern Summer Time. That's the last one that's going to be in Daylight Savings Time. So October 25th. Do you want to do the adjournment?
Yep. Yes. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today and sharing the insights. And we are going to be meeting next month on October 25th. After that, we would be meeting in person. We have created a document to share your agenda items for the meeting, which will be in person. I've shared a document with everyone. Can you please fill that out and share that update the document as soon as possible, or your agenda items would not be covered. We want to make sure that the meeting is smooth, everyone's items are updated, and we know what we're going to be doing when we meeting in person. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm happy to adjourn the meeting and pass the motion.
Second.
Thanks, Grant.
Third.
Thanks, everyone.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.